Hello everybody, welcome back to my studio. This is Emma on a beautiful Tuesday morning, which is looking more and more spring-like. It's actually, I almost don't need a woolly jumper on here, but I'm not taking any risks, not just yet. It's only May, middle of May, and here in the UK, you know, it's not worth rushing into summer just yet, I don't think, but you know, getting there. Yesterday afternoon, Monday afternoon, I came in here to try and start doing some stuff. I thought I might make myself a new handbag for spring because I have a winter one that I made, I don't know, a few years ago, and I thought, well, you know what, I really fancy a new handbag. And I think I was in a real old slump yesterday afternoon. I could not get this thing to come together at all. Usually when I start playing with the fabrics, things come. So instead, after a little while, I thought I'm not going to just try and push this thing through, because sometimes there's an edges in the way you just kind of, if I just keep going, something will shift. But yesterday afternoon nothing was shifting, so I tidied up a bit in my studio because it was a bit of a hoolie, and then I just went out for a walk and I felt so much better when I came back in. And today's a fresh new day, and I'm going to start. I think part of it is I've sort of been procrastinating doing what I want to do next. I don't know that you can see behind me, but I will show you over here. I have got a beautiful dummy of mine, and on there is the piece that I've been talking about over the last few weeks that I want to get back into, and I want to sort of move it forward and possibly get it finished, whatever finished means, completed or just made into something rather than just a half-finished UFO hanging around the studio like it has been for the last few years. I'm sure many of us have these things called UFOs. Those of you who don't know that phrase, it's a kind of it's something I picked up in the world of quilting. It's an unfinished object, and it can be something that lurks in the back of your cupboard for many years, and you look at it from time to time and go, oh, I don't know what to do with that. So that's where I'm at with this piece, and I put it up on the dummy a few weeks ago thinking, right, I'm really going to get to grips with this. And then I went off into my sketchbook because I thought that was a nice way of feeling my way into it, but it was also, I will be honest, a bit of procrastination. So I feel ready, I feel now's the time. So I've got myself a lovely box of fabrics out. These are the sort of shades I want to work with today. They're kind of, I've got these very bright blues going on, but I want to add those in at the end. I feel as though my focus on this was calling it sea change. That kind of gave me a feeling of, well, I started this piece many years ago. I'm not the same person that made this in the first place. The colours that I've got on it are not the colours I would necessarily use now. So I want to kind of make this a piece of kind of history, so that it's going through the where I was to where I am now in terms of the colours that I would now use, and maybe the techniques that I would now use, and how I would approach it, which these days is a much more intuitive way. I like to play, I like to allow things to bubble up. There's that famous phrase that once you start, the magic can begin, and if you don't start, obviously magic doesn't have a chance. So anyway, these are the lovely fabrics. I've got all sorts of beautiful things here that I'm cutting up. See, this is a lovely scarf from the charity shop with beautiful fringing, but it's the most lovely soft green organza sort of fabric. I've got sort of silky things. I've got this, which is a very nice pattern. There's not much of this left actually. This was a shrug. It's got a pattern to it, but if I cut it in the right way and I sort of attack it with my embellisher, perhaps it will come into the mix. And this, I've talked about this sort of stuff many times. This is really lovely to use with or without an embellisher. It's a knitted fabric, and if you cut it into strips and you pull it apart, you get really nice sort of threads from it. So I will show you next what is on the dummy, and then you'll get a feeling for where, well, I don't know, where I am. Perhaps that's the best way. Where am I starting from? This is my start point. You'll see it's work in progress. It's got pins in it. I mean, I don't know how many years it's had pins in it, but quite a long time. So if you've got UFOs in your cupboard, you are not alone. It is a thing. It's somehow, if you lose the momentum with something, you move on to something else, you move on to something new and exciting, and the old thing gets sort of pushed to one side. I often find if I just take things out of my pile and I cut them up, or I strip things off, or I add things onto them, you can start to rework them from a place of where you are now rather than where you were when you started the thing. And if you really hate it, stick it in your recycling bin. Don't sit and look at it and go, oh, this makes me feel awful. If it makes you feel awful, get rid of it. That's what I say. I'm very much of the Marie Kondo. I don't know how many of you know Marie Kondo's work. She's the Japanese lady who gets people cleaning their houses out in a beautiful way. It may not be your way, but it's a really neat way of doing things. You pull all of your stuff out into one place and you look at it and you realise how many books you've got or how many clothes. And she asks, does it spark joy? And if it doesn't spark joy, then, you know, time to let it go and let somebody else have it or something. So let's get on. I'll show you my dummy and then we'll see where we get to with some actual fabric making and sampling and stuff today. It's great to have you here. Thank you so much. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for all your support. It's been great. We've had a lot of conversations this last week or so, and that is just a joy. So this is my dummy. And many years ago, I bought a dummy at the auction with a few other things, and it used to be made of cloth, and I actually papier-mâchéed over the top because I wanted that sort of look. And I've used this dummy for displaying many things down the years, usually my corsets, because I love to make corsets. So this is a work in progress, guys. This is something I started to make many years ago, and it really needs me to pay it some attention and get it finished. Got some bits that I've made using soluble fabrics. I've got little bits of sort of seaweedy things going on here. I've got some lovely textures going on, and this has been done with soluble at the front here, and I've got different colours. So I've got this lighter colour and this very much darker colour. Oh, I've got bits hanging, waiting. I've just been pinning things on to see. So you can see the layering I'm starting to achieve there. So what I want to do really, I'll just show you around the back. I'll show you how unfinished this is. Right, that's the neck. There's nothing on the back, and I've just kind of got fabric pinned on where I want things to go roughly for my sort of corset shape and my skirt. So plenty of work here to be getting on with. So I'm going to start today. I want to really work on these colours down here. As you say, I've got some bits sort of pinned on here. It's meant to be as though it's made of seaweed. That was my original idea, and I feel as though I've just got to get some layers on here. This is made with, I think it was some old blanket that was a nice colour, a softer, not a heavy blanket. It was just like some wool fabric, like a blanket, not as thick. And this was as far as I got. And I've added bits on over the years. I've kept doing a little bit, but really I think now is the time. Carpe diem, as they say. Seize the day. It's time for me to talk to this piece and ask it where it wants to go. So I'm going to start playing and we'll see where that takes me as per usual. Okay, so this is a little sample I'm just preparing. I've got my embellishing machine here. For those of you who don't know what this is, it's a needle punching machine, a bit like doing needle punching by hand for felt making things. But this is a machine and it has no threads, it just has needles which punch one fabric into another, and it makes lovely textures and lovely new fabrics for me to stitch into, and it makes a noise a bit like this. I'll just switch it on. You can see there it's just punching the fabric one through another, and it creates these lovely textures. So I've just got various layers that I've put down here. It scrunches the fabrics up and makes this a really lovely surface. And you can just add pieces of fabric and more pieces of fabric until you're really happy with it. And I love it. And if you don't like what you've put down, you can just pull it off again and start again. So I'm sorry to be embellishing again, guys. I know a lot of you don't have an embellishing machine. I know a lot of people contact me and say, I'd like an embellishing machine. And I just say, well, it's entirely up to you. What you're doing in your practice, in your making, is up to you. I have found an embellishing machine to be just like the best thing since sliced bread. It's really, oh, that's quite a hard fabric. I don't think it likes it that much. It's just an absolute joy to use. It's made my surfaces really tactile and textured and creative. Okay, so when you've got some fabrics down, you can then also add in bits of yarns or threads that you've got lying around the place. I keep bagfuls and I stash them away. This is a little bit of fringing and I've unraveled it, and look at this, it's gone all crinkly and curly, so I'm going to add that into here as well. And then you can add, you know, other things on top. You can even use, you know, this is where your wool stash can come in. If you add little bits of wool on top, that can help hold things in place. You could add bits of fabric on top of this as well. What I do when I've got loose bits like this is I take a bit of, this is dress weight net, okay? This is just what you'd use if you were making a petticoat for a little dress or something for a child, or if you're a ballerina, perhaps you might use it for your ballet tutu, I don't know. But if you put it on top, that holds everything in place while you embellish it down. And I'm just taking it steady because this is getting quite thick now. So I'm just taking it easy. And I'm not going mad with the embellishing because I just want these bits of yarn held in place. But I don't necessarily want them mashed into the surface. So I just want to get them held in place under the net. And then I can take the net off. Just peel this back like that. If you embellish it too much, the net will stick in the surface, okay? Which can be something you might like, I don't know. But you can see there, I've started to create some nice extra textures on there. And again, you don't have to keep it all flat down. You can pull bits off. If you don't like where you've got it, you can just unplug it, take it off a little bit, and then you can add more things on top of there. So it's such a versatile piece of equipment. And then what you can do is once you've taken the net off, you can just embellish it a little bit more where you want it to be embellished, ready for stitching. And as I say, you can add more things on top. So put this little bit extra on top of here. You have to make sure your needles are up before you move. Oops, I've just moved the camera there, sorry. Let's do a little bit of that on top. So you can start to blend. It's a bit like kind of painting. You do layering and you add bits on and you add more and more bits until you're happy with it, you know, until it makes you think, oh yes, I really like that. Okay, so I've done the brave thing of taking my lovely piece off the dummy, which took a bit of courage to do because it's been pinned on there for a long time. I've got my sewing machine set up here for free machine embroidery. I've lowered the feed dog teeth and I've got my embroidery foot on, or my darning foot if you're new to free machining. I always lower my top tension a little bit, but that's just personal to my sewing machine. I also what else do I do? Oh yes, I make the stitch length down to sort of 0 because then I'm sort of controlling it, if you like. I'm not really controlling it. Stitch length just happens as far as I'm concerned. I'm not worried about it, but it just means it makes the machine a little bit fluider, more loose, more able to do the free machining for me. So I've got these pieces that I've kind of pinned on, and I've been adding texture and embellishing bits on, and I'm just going to stitch it now. So let's get free machining. I don't want to machine it all completely flat. I want it to have texture. But the beautiful thing about my process is I can always add more texture on top. If I don't like what I've done, I can just simply free machine down as much as I want to, and then I can add, you know, take bits on top. This is what I love about working with fabrics, is nothing is set in stone. And yes, you have to kind of make a commitment to it, which is kind of what I've had to do here. Instead of procrastinating and thinking I had to get it all done in one go, I've decided to just start. I've started with one part of it, which is the lighter colours down at the bottom. and I'm just going to see where that takes me. This is the beauty of free machine embroidery. It does what it says on the tin, it's free. It's a little bit tricky here because I've got some thick textures here, so I'll just take it steady. I'm going to take it real slow on this bit. I've obviously layered my fabrics up quite a lot here, so that's okay. We can deal with that.